Hello. We're here to do stand-up comedy. I'm not funny though, so here's Eric.
I don't get it.
So since it's school, we figured we'd try to teach you something before we play. You can probably see there's a whole mess of drum kit over here. Sam's got a whole bunch of stuff going on here. So I'm just going to walk through kind of the setup and the routing and the ins and outs. Sam will walk you through kind of what he has going on in Ableton after that. The cord's not going to reach my computer, so you'll just have to imagine what's happening over there. This is everything up here on a page, and then we'll just kind of break it down piece by piece and walk through it. Starting with my end, so this is my sound card, which is also a digital mixer. It's XR18, which is similar to like a X32 you find in a lot of venues. Feeding that, I have 5 microphones on the drum kit. I also have a sample pad with 2 external triggers used as toms. All of that MIDI data is reaching Ableton through the sound card, a 5-pin cable actually, and that's better. I prefer it to USB, so I just have fewer connections, and I don't need a USB hub.
Okay.
I also have a really simple controller on my phone with just 4 buttons turning on and off. Different drum racks for the sample pad, and that's built using Touch OSC, and it's connected with Wi-Fi. That's kind of like everything that's happening up here without all the mess of cables. And then on Sam's end, he has an Apollo X8, I think it is, and his computer. For audio sources, he has a synth left-right going straight into the interface. It's used as a hard synth here. It reduces the CPU in Ableton and makes it a lot easier to play live. Because he doesn't have MIDI in-out on his sound card, he has a separate MIDI interface. That's actually that's sending MIDI clock info to the virus, so it stays in sync with all of his arpeggiators. And then the virus is sending out a MIDI signal that's triggering a sub bass in Ableton, and that's summed with the synth when it gets sent out. Guitar and bass, and then all of these MIDI controllers. So that's everything with pictures. So both setups function completely independently if they need to. And then when we start connecting them together, it's mostly audio between the two. So Sam's sending me his 4 channels into the interface over there. I send him back 2 channels, one with just my kick signal, one with just snare that he uses for side chains and a couple of other things. Headphone mixes, both unique mixes out of the interface. Our main left-right to the front of house. And then I have a foot switch that's actually plugged into his BCR here. It gives me like a mute all on everything, so
if you want to give fills.
Yeah, or like if you get annoying or whatever, I can just like mute you all together.
So always on.
It's always on.
Yeah, so it's always on. We use Link to sync our computer's tempo. The interface down here sends out a Wi-Fi signal, and that's also how I'm controlling the computer with, or my computer with Touch OSC.
So yeah, like one of us changes, or you're playing drums, so if I change the tempo, it'll change for him too.
Yeah, we used to send clock data through a MIDI cable, and then when Link came out, it just made everything way easier. At one point, we did like Ethernet to try to sync tempos. There's been like 5 different iterations of this setup before we found one that was kind of solid.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is probably my favorite part of the setup is a 5-pin cable from Sam's MIDI interface to mine. And what this does is allow him to actually control effects on my computer. So there's a pass-through channel on his Ableton, and then a pass-through on my end that's receiving MIDI signal. We keep all of that data on channel 16, and we've got like the same instance of an effect on both computers, so it's kind of like a master effects on the main outputs. And so yeah, I think that was probably the biggest breakthrough in the whole setup. At one point it was passing on to a third member as well, so we were able to like daisy chain it all the way through. And so in terms of connections, it's a lot of cables, but each of us with our own setups, audio back and forth, link for the tempo, and then that MIDI cable for control, for Sam to control things. And then I touched on this already, we just send left-right to the front of house. But in that are 14 channels. And because this is a digital mixer, we have a tablet that we can just give to front of house. It gives them complete control over the mix. And so that was also a big step when we got this thing, and just not hoping that our stereo left-right sounded good, actually being able to trust the sound guy to do it.
And I want to say that it's already pre-leveled and there's EQs already pre-EQ'd. So obviously each room is different, so sound guys should take a look at it and adjust it, but it's pretty nice that like the standard stuff, like the resonances you take out of a snare or whatever, like it's already there. So the sound guy, his life is easier.
Yeah, and so I'll pass it over to Sam in a second. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you just have to imagine my Ableton over here. So the kick and the snare here, even though they're mic'd up, they're running into Ableton and then through a software called Steven Slate Drum. And basically it turns the microphone into an acoustic trigger. So if you're familiar with, a trigger, I just found that they weren't always as reliable, and I didn't get the sensitivity I wanted. So with a microphone and a software, I've been able to really dial it in on the kick and snare.
The velocity is great.
Yeah, the kick is 100% digital, even though there's a kick in the room. In this room, you might hear a lot more of the acoustic than you would in a larger venue. The snare is 50-50 to give me even more like ambience and ghost notes as best I can. And then the overheads, those are just straight mics as well as the close mic on the hi-hat. And those have a number of different effects. The effects on the overheads actually go out of a separate stereo channel. And it came in handy for nights like tonight when such a small room and you really don't need microphones on the overheads, but we still want the effects to come through the speakers. So we're able to turn down the dry signal almost all the way. Cool.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have been able to do this without him figuring all this out, because I did not understand for the longest time. The biggest hang up was just like understanding that there's 16 MIDI channels and there's 127 MIDI notes on each channel. So like channel 16, like he was talking about, is set to be able to work for both of our computers. So I have multiple effects where I'll hit one button and it will turn on the same effect on both of our computers, which is pretty cool and was a huge breakthrough for us. But that's in the way. Okay, this looks goofy because of that. That is zoomed. So yeah, I have no clips in here. It's just a bunch of empty clips. I use 3 APCs, all as control surfaces, and then this Behringer VCR is all MIDI mapped manually. And if this thing went down, our life would be over, so I need to buy another one ASAP. But yeah, so the APC on the left here, I use it to control the virus, which is the only synth I'm using, is always on. And I can use it without a sub bass, and then here's just the sub bass underneath. And that's the only MIDI instrument in Ableton. Everything else is audio. My guitar is audio, the bass is audio, and this is running out stereo audio. Just because, if you can, the latency is very good, and latency is like when you hit a note. Oh, it's muted. Latency is when you hit a note, how quick you hear it, so I can play it in real time well. So yeah, I just when I love bass noises, I'll throw the sub bass on underneath. And that's fun. And then there's a guitar channel, and then a second just audio channel for the guitar here, and I'll loop to both of those. And then a bass channel for just the bass guitar, which is rarely played, but nice for down tempo and stuff. This second APC is all for my high-end loops, so pads, leads, percussive sounds, weird sound effects, you name it. And then the third APC is for all my bass loops, and whenever I change keys, I just throw on a weird master effect and then delete everything. Literally just go bam and delete. And yeah, I'm literally just recording audio clips and muting channels to go between different bass noises. And I have the ability, but it's rare, but I have a final channel in each of these where if I want to re-record, let's say I have 4 different bass noises I like, I can jump between them and re-record it, and then the sequence will change between 4 different bass noises, which is cool, but kind of unnecessary a lot. This thing up here is a monster. We've created a convoluted monster. There is every effect we ever need. Like, we have multiple master effects. Like, there's one I like to use that is just for like all our fills, and there's like a beat repeat grid, and I can control the grid and the delay time and the filter, and that's the sequence of it. So it'll beat repeat into a weird delay into a filter, and that just gives like a big meshy sound for fills. And there's another one that is it's a delay into a filter that has an LFO on, so it's moving the delay around the room into a reverb. And the reverb I really like to always use is called 2C Aether. It's a third-party reverb, and I think it sounds really, really good. But I turn it on, it turns on both of our computers, and then it won't come through until I turn up these knobs, and I can control how much of it is on my guitar loops, my high-end loops, my bass loops, his overhead mics, his snare mic, and his digital pad, which is pretty cool. It's really fun if I'm like, okay, I want the guitar to stay dry, but I want my high-end loops to be drenched in this effect. And then I have a bunch of things I rarely ever use that are just programmed from before we stopped playing in 2019, but then we missed doing this and we wanted to do it again. I also have Effectrix, which is like a glitchy, weird, just like a bunch of different effects, and you just draw on like, okay, phaser, beat repeat, all this stuff. You can just draw in crazy glitches, and I'll just do that for weird fills if I want to. I have a foot controller over here, which is why I don't have shoes on. So while I'm playing, I can glitch stuff out, and then the bottom is all different stutter rates, and the rest of it's just presets of like weird glitches. Oh, it's cool. That's more risky, so that's nice for just like the occasional high-end loop where you want to get weird with it. Yeah, I have some other like Master Effects stuff. I have like this weird thing that like digitizes my guitar, makes it all like square wave LFO OE around the room, and drenched in reverb, makes it really dreamy, and you can do that on all the 6 channels I was talking about before. So yeah, it's just a lot, and it's nice to be able to have options. It can be overwhelming. When we used to play, it was, by the end, it was really easy to get lost in all the toys, and this time around we're really just trying to be like, I'm a looping machine and you're a drummer. And I'm here to not fumble around, I'm here to make the loop, and it's done. And there's no need to be like, look, I can shred. It's like, that's not the point. Let's make this dancey, let's make it focused. yeah, as far as, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, Sam just kind of touched on it, but like overall actually making the thing work, like the biggest thing I think is reducing CPU as much as possible. Even still we run into audio glitches from time to time. And then simplifying, like you just said, just realizing we could program that thing, but do we need to? Like, is it actually going to add that much, or is it just going to distract us from actually playing music?
Yeah, having fun is the hardest one. Because we're like, oh God, we have to do it now. And it's just easier when we're in my basement. And we can just be like, high five, let's hang out for a minute and then do it. But now we're here. And it's terrifying. No, let's say.
Improvised?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's all improvised. So we just, like tonight, the only thing we've really talked about is like, because we're gonna play for like 45 minutes probably. And we're gonna start at 90 and play some like halftime drum and bass kind of stuff, go up to 100, play some more mid-tempo stuff, go up to 120 and 130, play a smaller section of like housey stuff and build up to 140 and dropping into halftime kind of like heavy dubstep stuff, and then go up to, if we have time, and it's easy to let it get carried away and let things string on, so we're trying to, I feel like we're more focused on it now, but then try to go up to like 172 and play some like halftime and full-time drum and bass stuff. But yeah, I mean, we do down-tempo stuff too, and there'll probably be a little hints of that, but we need to get back to playing full sets of that eventually too, because it's pretty and fun. Yeah. Other than that, as you can see, there's just a bunch of empty loops, or no loops, empty clips. And what I do is since there's so many things getting recorded, I resend the audio from all the hi-hat loops and the bass loops to a different single channel. So when it gets sent to him to record, like when we first started playing again, I would do that, and then it's like, oh, we can't mix this. There's 8 instances of the same noise that were recorded, and I don't know which one was the one that was on. And then these are for his kick and snare side chain, his receiving ends that I have on the virus group. Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, you can't see it. Oh, that's cool. Apparently this HDMI screen setup was not ideal. But yeah, it's side chain. So like, what that means is like, if you aren't aware, when he hits his kick, my noises will duck when and I have it on the bass group. So if it's like still happening while we're playing, it still ducks. And the loop's already recorded. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know, any questions? Did we deter you from trying to learn this stuff yet? Hi.
Hi. So it's like pretty much entirely audio except for MIDI effects.
And the sub bass.
But that's like not in Ableton, right?
The sub bass is in Ableton,
Okay.
but there's MIDI cables going, so when I play this, it can still send the MIDI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that's not super heavy on the CPU.
No, the thing that's really heavy on my CPU is my guitar amp plugin. It's Neural DSP Archetype John Petrucci from Dream Theater.
Wow. Okay.
And it's just a freaking hog. It was like 12%, now it's like 30%, but everything's not buggy. Yeah, but yeah.
The sample pad over here. The sample pad is MIDI data, as well as the toms. I was running the same plugin on the toms for a long time, and then again, reducing CPU, ended up re-recording that audio and just dropping it in a drum rack. But all of those drum racks are going through an audio channel, and so like I don't go in and edit any MIDI data. We just have a single channel of audio for all of those pad sounds when we go to mix.
Yep. And we use in-ear monitors, and we have separate headphone mixes than what's coming out the speaker, so that, you know, if he wants his drums quieter because he's right next to them, he can. Stuff like that. But yeah, anything else?
What kind of in-ear monitor?
I use Shure SE535s, and they have subwoofers and mids and tweeters in each side, which is cool. They sound really nice. Same thing?
Same thing. I had sleeves made for mine. So
Yeah, he's got custom molds.
protect my ears a little better from the drums.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, we'll play for you. Anything else?
Get scary.
Yeah! Woo!
All right, we'll get a little loud for you. Do we want to get this done really quick? This cable in the way? No? All right, cable's dangling.